Yeah, I definitely believe in soul ties. I think, broadly speaking, I think any kind of physical, and because it can be sex, but I think really any kind of physical intimacy, especially for women, leaves a soul tie. I think and I guess soul ties, I would say specifically sex. I think it doesn't matter, like, if it's casual or not. I believe that it's chemical. Like, you can't ignore that there is a soul tie. There is something that I think you take on, whoever you sleep with, you take on in ways. So I think it's definitely something that's worth talking about. And specifically in the church, I mean, I grew up a Christian, have been a Christian my whole life. That is, it's for me, it's relational. Like, my relationship with Jesus is my number one thing in my life. And so I think it's just such a bigger conversation than, well, God says not to do it. It's like, okay, sure, but like, why? Right. Like, what's actually behind this? Why is sex such a gift that God created in a marriage, covenant? Like, why is it? And I think in the past couple of years, I've really been able to identify that. And my sweet parents gave me a purity ring when I was 13. That's great, but I did not understand what that meant. Yeah. Like, I understood what sex was, but as a 13-year-old girl, I didn't understand the temptation. I didn't understand the feeling. I didn't understand how big of a topic it is. And I don't think we talk about it enough in church.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I don't think we talk about it enough just in general.
Hey, welcome back to That's What He Said. I'm your host, Natalie, and this is a podcast about dating. Before you watch, make sure you subscribe, follow, like, comment, rate, review, and share the show. Let's find out what he said.
Shelby Nunn.
Hi.
Welcome to That's What He Said.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers. A poppy cheers.
Yes.
That's so
the cherry limeade is fire too.
Right?
I don't know if you had it.
You kind of can't go wrong. Great brand.
So, introduce yourself. You are, actually, I'm going to do a little intro.
Do it.
So, we had Carley Davis / Nunn and Zach Davis on the show season 1.
Yep.
The most amazing married couple. So inspiring. I'm sure you agree.
I very much agree.
And so, this is Carley's younger sister,
yes.
Shelby, who's amazing. Single, not married yet.
Not married yet.
So it'll be a little bit different perspective, but super excited you're here. So
happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Tell us a little bit about you and what you do and your dance career and all your fabulousness.
Yeah. So I am a dancer and actor. I live in Los Angeles and really grew up dancing my whole life, and got a little bit more into acting in the past couple years. So yeah, live in LA, and I've always been a performer and from a very early age, and thankfully have really supportive parents who have encouraged that dream. And like Carley, her being a singer and performer too, it's kind of been in her blood forever. So that's what I do out there.
Were your parents that way?
My dad was a football player in college and then is a pharmaceutical manager, so works with people a lot. I mean, and my mom was a dancer growing up and never pursued it professionally, but they both have rhythm and can dance. Like, they can get down. So maybe that part, but no, never. I think I know my mom could have been a professional dancer if she kept going.
Yeah.
She just.
It was also a different time back
Different
then.
time. Yeah. But she's iconic, so she can dance.
How old are you?
27.
27.
I turned 28. Oh, thank you so much. I feel like I turned 28 in February, so upper 20s.
28's a great age.
Yeah, I think I feel good about it. I'm not scared.
Yeah. How is living in LA?
I love it. So my story is kind of interesting in the sense of I went to school in New York. So I grew up in Houston my whole life, but went to college in New York City.
That's right.
Never thought I'd leave New York. Was a New York or nowhere girly for years. Graduated college. It was 2020. I graduated in 2019, and then 2020 happened.
Oh,
and we remember what happened then.
Yes.
And that brought me back to Houston for 2 years. Thought I would go back to New York, and then.
And of all places to be.
The Lord put horrible.
Yeah.
So I was home for 2 years, and then the Lord put LA on my heart, and. Now Carley, Zach, and I live together.
Yeah.
We all live together in the apartment for now. So it's been a really fun season.
Yeah.
But I love LA.
And so for your dance career, what all do you do? I mean, are you doing auditions to like do professional
Yeah.
jobs? I know you teach.
Yeah. So as far as the dance go, I really thought I was just going to be a dancer, do the Broadway thing. I was in an off-Broadway show before COVID, was really in that route of more musical theater, kind of commercial land.
Yeah.
And now with acting, I'm kind of splitting the time or trying to do both. So definitely in the season of auditioning, but I'm not in a professional company in the sense of like a ballet. I'm not a ballerina. Yeah. That is not what I do. I do ballet, but I'm not a ballerina.
Yeah.
And not in a company. So it's more freelancing, commercial work, film, television, Broadway, that kind of style. So more jazzy, if you will.
I love it.
Yeah,
That's
it's really
so
fun.
That's
It is
such
fun.
a like fun, glamorous, like just very dreamy life.
It is, and it's not.
I'm sure there's an ugly side. We don't know anything about that. We just see the glamour. But,
right.
Yeah.
Those, there's glamorous moments, but it's a lot of work and it's a lot of no's and a lot of rejection, which is why it's important to have good community and strong faith, because I don't know how people do it without either.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
I will tag you and so everyone can
Oh.
support you and watch everything.
Goodness, thank you.
So tell us a little bit about you're single. Tell us your relationship status currently.
I'm currently in a relationship. I have a boyfriend.
Okay.
Wow.
We love that word.
We love that word. The title. Wow.
Very satisfying.
Very satisfying, for sure. I'm like, wow. So yes, I'm in a relationship, but it's newer, just about 3 months. So
okay.
Yeah.
We'll get to that towards the end. More information on that. But I want to start off by let's just go to the beginning. So tell us about when you first started dating, what that was like, and we're just going to kind of navigate through all the ups and downs of your dating life to where you are now in your relationship.
Yeah. So I was a bit of a different girl in the sense of I did not date. My first boyfriend was when I was 20. So I never dated in high school. It sounds strange, but I wasn't really interested in it. I was so focused. I went to a performing arts high school in Houston, and I was so focused on what I wanted to do. And I knew I wanted to go to New York and be a dancer, that I was so, horse blinder focused that I just didn't pay attention
Were you
to
at
it.
HSPBA?
Yeah.
Okay. My mom went there.
Really?
Yes.
For what?
She plays the saxophone. She
Oh
was
my
in a jazz
gosh.
band, and her brother as well.
Wait, that's so cool.
Yeah.
So you get it. It just very, and there was not many options at a performing arts school with the guys, and it just, to be honest, I just was just not really focused on it. And there was a part of me, obviously, that wanted that. I'm a big romantic and big romanticizer, and I always desired that, but I would look around at the options and just be like, nah, I'll just wait. Yeah. So when I moved to New York and went to college, I, again, was in a dance program, performing arts program. So again, options were weird, but I really dealt with loneliness in high school and then in college in that area, because I knew I had standards. I, knew who I should be with and the type of man I should be with. So I had high standards, but
what did those standards look like?
I mean, I definitely, just because my parents have been married 32 years and are incredible. And so I've had that incredible godly relationship to look up to my whole life. My dad would, when my sister and I were little, would take us on pretend dates. That he would literally go outside the house, walk up, knock on the door, and ask my mom, "Is Shelby home?" And would take us on daddy-daughter date nights. We still do that. Just really instilled a culture of a man should be a gentleman. He should love Jesus more than you. He should pursue all these really good things. So my standards were
crazy high.
Crazy high. Crazy high. And then Carley and Zach being in, at that time still, they dated for 10 years before they got married. Or 8. Anyways, they've been together a long time, since they were 18. Yeah. So again, great relationship to look up to. So I had these incredible examples, but loneliness crept in a lot. And when is that going to be my turn? And when am I going to be able to experience this? And then it was my end of my sophomore year that I started kind of being interested in this guy who was also in the dance program. And that eventually became my first boyfriend.
This was in New York?
This was in New York, yeah. So it was really when I was 20. Like, my first kiss was when I was 20.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That's
like,
very wholesome, though.
It is wholesome. It was, yes, but it became a little, I think what happened because, I mean, and we'll talk about this, but wasn't, I think what happened, looking back in retrospect, again, great examples. I was in, had a great life, like everything was good. There was nothing really negative going on, but I think the doubt and the loneliness like caught up to me. So when a guy gave me attention and was trying to pursue me and I was like, oh, this is fun, I think the standards kind of went away and I was like, oh, this is what it feels like. And that is what made me be like, okay, this is good.
Latch onto it.
Right. Yeah. So it's a weird, like, kind of wore me down, the loneliness and just not having experience, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I can definitely relate to that. It's almost like, I don't want to use this word in a negative connotation, but like a desperation like takes over.
Yeah.
Not that you are a desperate person, but like, of course you're desperate to be loved and
oh my gosh,
have these amazing relationships that you've seen your whole life. You feel like you're missing out on something.
Yes.
Or like, if I don't take it now, is it ever going to come?
Yeah.
Especially, can't imagine being in New York City, like just around all those people. And I'm sure there's relationships, people,
especially in a
arts
program, like gets messy. But 100%.
And the romanticizing too. I mean, being an artist and being in like the most passionate environment you could be in.
And that is something that I think is not talked about a lot, but it's so true. I think that's what makes me, I think, a performer, because I feel really big. Like I have big feelings. Like I feel things intensely, and so it can be tricky, especially like feeling that loneliness and being like, oh my gosh, like I'm 20 and I haven't even had my first kiss. Like something's wrong with me.
Yeah.
And so that it just wore me down. Yeah. And then I thought, oh, this is good. This can be my first,
Yeah. And so what was that relationship like for you?
Takes a deep breath. It became a case of being a fixer. And I think for me, I'm a big nurturer by nature. Like I love to take care of people, and I don't know if it's like the motherly feeling in me or whatever it is, but I was super attracted to this person, and it was really intense that way. Like it felt great. It was just really passionate, but there was a lot of red flags that I just chose to ignore.
Yeah.
I knew deep down the entire time that it wasn't right, but I just tried to keep convincing myself that it was fine and that I could fix it. Ugh, painful. If you've ever been in a fixer relationship, and we do it with friends, we do it with family, but I just thought like, no, that he's great, and this is great. I've never felt this way before. I've never experienced these things. This is amazing. So the highs were so high and beautiful, and the lows were horribly low, and dealt with emotional abuse, just a lot of lying, cheating. Just it was really toxic.
Yeah.
But I just stayed with it for about 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. 5 years of just ups and downs, and it got to the point where I thought that was normal. And it took, I mean, my family, Carley especially, my sister was.
I can only imagine.
Yeah. It's still a sensitive topic in the sense of just I did not listen to my family, and it's one of those things where you have to learn yourself.
For sure.
People can tell you all day like he's not right or this isn't good for you, but I had to experience it. And again, it's not that he's this horrible, awful person. It was just not right. It just wasn't supposed to be. But I forced it and like tried to make it work for 5 years.
Yeah.
And just left a lot of damage and a lot of, brokenness, the way it ended.
That's very, very relatable, I think, to probably most women.
Yeah.
It's certainly myself.
I know, we're
not 5 years, but over the course of 5 years, definitely many of those. Fixing, and there's something to be said about that urge to fix and nurture that you're talking about, because that's not a bad thing. We're wired that way. I mean, that's part of being like a healthy feminine woman.
Agreed.
Is feeling, knowing, and acknowledging and acting on the desire to like help and fix and nurture.
Right.
But it can also be taken advantage of or mislead us when it's, directed into the wrong person.
Yeah. Oof, that's so good. I think it's so true. It's like healthy. When it's healthy, it's really beautiful. And when you're with a healthy person, it's not mismanaged. And the taking advantage part is huge. I think that's, and it can be confusing, I think, as women, because we feel like we're helping, but then when it's like mismanaged, it's so easy to give excuses. And I think that's maybe relatable, of just constantly making excuses for someone and for bad behavior. And, because it'd be bad behavior and then love bombing to bring me back.
Yeah. Explain that. So you're talking about that roller coaster ride that you can go on in these toxic relationships. What was like the pattern that would take you to the highs and then take you to the lows? Yeah.
I think things would be really great and beautiful and fun and good. And so it would be like, this is great. I'm so happy. I'm in love. I've never felt love like this. And then it would be something in his own life that he was dealing with that had nothing necessarily to do with me, that would spiral him in a self-hatred, kind of bad reflection on him, which would pull me down. And then I would try to fix it. And then he would kind of resist the fix and then lash out in a way whether it was, bad behavior, whether it was like times where he was unfaithful to me or would be destructive to his own self, yelling, just it would get really bad, really dark. I would tell myself, okay, I got to get out of this because this is bad and it's bringing me down. And then it would be like a few days and then he would be like, I'm so sorry. I'm never going to do that again. I promise I'm going to be better. I love you so much. And then it would kind of take us back up the roller coaster. It was literally that every time.
Yeah.
Because so then it just kept me believing like, oh, this is a relationship. This is love. It's just highs and lows all the time. So I got used to it and I could see the pattern coming and like brace myself for the trauma and be like, well, it's eventually going to get better. Yeah. And I would think, okay, this is the last one every time. And it wasn't.
Yeah. And I think you kind of train yourself to like that feeling of like bracing for it because you can see it coming. At least I have caught myself saying many times, like, I can do this. I can handle this.
Yeah.
Like, I've done this before. I can do it again.
Right.
Whether it be that same pattern with the same guy or the same pattern with a different guy.
Right.
And so you do start to think like this
normalize.
Is normal.
Yeah. Like, oh, this is, and I can do this. And he still loves me. And again, I think it kind of goes back to that. And it's painful and slightly embarrassing to admit, but I think it's real. It's just, you feel needed. Yeah. And it's like kind of that, again, that feeling of nurturing of like, okay, I'm there for him. I can catch him when he falls, but it's like, at what cost?
Yeah. That's almost like a very sinister, like, pride.
Yeah.
Because I think at times I took pride in like, look at how I can help him and fix him and like,
oh yeah,
you were low and now I brought you back up.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of like feeds this like false, not pride, but like false confidence.
Yeah. And I think pride does have to do with it and feeling. It happened with people close to me in my family thinking they don't know him like I do. And like they don't get it. And it's, and our love is great. And everyone's like, it was just constantly convincing myself that this was right. And I think, again, like feeding that beast of, well, this feels good and I'm needed. Ugh. It's not cute.
Yeah. What it really, like, those kind of toxic relationships break down to is like codependency.
Oh.
Because that, like, that real love, as I understand it, at least. I mean, we should bring your mom and dad in just to make sure we're not saying the wrong thing.
We can bring mom and dad in.
You know, someone can be, one of the two people can be experiencing highs and lows, because we all do. I mean, that's part of life. Mm-hmm. But when you're attached, like when you're in the same car as them, like the little cars on a roller coaster, like you're going where they're going. So
that's such a good analogy.
They're
work. Wow. Go off.
Just spun off my tongue.
Come on. You're going in the same direction that they're going.
Yeah, you're attached. So like they're happy. Your happiness depends on their happiness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there should be dependence in a healthy relationship.
Yeah.
But it's interdependent. It's not codependent. Mm-hmm. So yes, my happiness depends on your happiness.
Right.
But
to a certain extent.
To an extent where I can separate. If you're crying and depressed, I don't have to feel like I have to stop my life to fix you.
Right.
I can acknowledge it and help you while maintaining my peace.
It's like being on a track, like separate tracks, and you're like going the same direction, but you're on your own track versus you know, in the crash car together, being like, well, here's the wall. We're going to crash again. Like,
hold on tight.
Yeah, hold on tight. And that's what it just was for a long time.
Yeah. What do you think kept you in it for so long?
What a great question. What a great question. Man, I feel really big, and when I love you, I love you, and I'm very loyal, and I just care a lot. And so I think for me, I just really thought I just loved him, and I wanted to be there. I wanted to help. I still think he's, you know, a great person and has incredible potential. Like I could see the good in him. Right. And so when I saw the good, like even though there were so many other things going on, I still saw that and I knew that person existed, and I knew he could love me like I wanted it. So it was the belief in that, which existed in him. It's not that it's not he was some monster. And I think I think with a lot of, I didn't experience domestic violence or anything, you know, physical, but I feel like that's a similar in that abuse cycle is you're like, but I know this good person exists, and because I see it. So that's just what kept me in. And I really thought I loved him. And he's the one who broke it off too. Which was another embarrassing thing, because I'm like, man, I should have done this years ago, but he had to do it. And even though it was such a painful, horrible way he did it, he was cheating on me for 6 months. And told me over text, but not that part. Anyways, yeah, crazy, like traumatic breakup.
Yeah.
But he had to do it, and I think that was like the final tie that I needed, because I think, and again, embarrassing to admit, but I probably would have tried to fix it longer. Probably would have been longer until something imploded, which it did. Yeah. But yeah, it was just the belief in that good person that does exist that just kept me there way longer than I needed to be.
I deeply relate to what you're saying, because I think when you're that type of person where you see people's potential, like you see, I was telling this, I have a new psychologist that I work with, and I was telling her, I feel like I have this double-edged sword, which is like this gift or ability to see people for who they're really supposed to be. Like when I can really get to know someone, or even early on, even like not knowing them super well, like I feel like God gives me like a download of like, this is who I want them to be. This is who they're supposed to be. And like, I can see it. And sometimes like they can't. Or other people can't. And so that's great, because that's how you help elevate others. Because you're like, I know what you're capable of. This is, you just have the ability to see.
Yeah.
But you also can get easily swept up in thinking that they also see that, or they also want that for themselves. You can't want it for somebody.
It's a false reality you create without them.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, this is who I believe you to be, and who I think you can be, and let's get there. But that's creating a future and that kind of goes back, I think, for me, the romanticizer in me. Like, I can see it.
Right.
The visualizer, the performer in me, I'm like, this could be great. If only you do this differently.
Right. 5, 6, 7, 8.
Yeah, 5, 6, 7, 8 has to be different. But no, it's so true. So true.
What do you think it is generally speaking, that attracts us to these type of men, these type of relationships? Because obviously there's something that happens in the beginning that gets you like hooked.
Yeah.
That gets you, there's something that makes us ignore the red flags.
Yeah.
What do you think that is?
Man, I think it has to be specific, I think, per situation and, you know, who you are and who the person you're attracting. But again, I think for me, it goes back to the nurturer, and I think it goes back to attraction a lot of the times. I think, especially initially, because I don't think you don't really get, for me, I love to get deep quickly in the sense of I love deep talks. I want to get to know you. Like, I'm not a big surface person. Like small talk, I'm like, ugh, can't do that.
Yeah.
So I do like to get deep with someone quickly, whether it's a friend or a relationship. But I think as far as in romantic relationships, I think it's attraction and chemistry. Specifically for me, like attraction was so there. The chemistry was so there. It was fun. It felt exciting. It felt, I felt very appreciated, and like I think it just tapped into a lot of like what it just felt good. I think, and that maybe that's a too simple of an answer, but I think initially, like I was like, wow, this really feels good, and he's, again, like, wow, he's giving me attention, and I haven't had this kind of attention in a while, so this is great. Oh, I know he doesn't really, like, kind of has a relationship with God, but that's fine, we can work on that. Like, oh, I don't like what he does there, but that's fine. Like, it feels good. Like, I think I was going so much on feelings, and so the logic left the building, and my sense of morality left too. Because again, before, like I mentioned before, the biggest thing for me was someone who loved Jesus more than me, and someone who treated me with respect. Like, that was always my biggest thing. So when I saw a glimmer of that, I was like, well, he like kind of loves God. Great, this is great, and this feels good, and this is fun, and it's like fiery, and I haven't felt that. I think that's what hooked me, and then it was like almost too late. It's like by the time I was like settled in, and then I was like, wait, it was like too late to like pull myself out.
Yeah.
So maybe it's that. Maybe it's like attraction, and just. Because we all know the thing about the bad boys, like, why do we like the bad boys?
Yeah, for sure.
You know, like, I think it's kind of back to that slightly.
Maybe there's was there a little bit of a chase element?
Yeah,
or
I was
like
very
bomby?
It was, in the beginning, it was less love bomby. I definitely resisted it because I knew he wasn't right for me. So I was like, no, we're better off as friends, because we were friends first, like in the same friend group. And so I was like, no, like, we're better off as friends. But he was so like flirty with me, and so definitely the chase element, and just being like, oh my gosh, like, wow, like, calm down, like, stop, like, we can't do this, we can just be friends. And it just kept, like, it fed his ego, because I think men are, so in my view, I think men do like that.
The chase. Of course.
Yeah.
They're hunters.
Yeah, and we're supposed to just be like hunted.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I think definitely that it made me ignore all the flags, the red flags.
Yeah.
And just was like, this feels great. This is
that's
fun.
definitely a recipe for chemistry and for fire, like just that cat and mouse game. It
which is
feels
okay.
A little bit forbidden. Yeah.
And like the whole forbidden fruit, and like, well, you know, it goes back to Adam and Eve, but like, let's take it all the way back.
Guys.
Those guys, Eve really set us up for failure. No, it's fine, relatable. But yeah, I think that is what, for me at least, initially.
Yeah. And you talked about like how you were like already hooked and like already deep into it, and you told me before that you wanted to kind of talk about purity and abstinence and how that has affected you.
Yeah.
And just because I know that's relatable to me.
Yeah.
That having like a physical bond with somebody like that, a sexual bond, will keep you in that roller coaster car, like until
soul
something
tie
throws you out.
So something knocks you out.
The ride falls apart.
The ride
turns off.
Disintegrates.
Park closes down.
Yeah, the park closes. Yeah, I definitely believe in soul ties. I think, broadly speaking, I think any kind of physical, and because it can be sex, but I think really any kind of physical intimacy, especially for women, leaves a soul tie. I think and I guess soul ties, I would say specifically sex. I think it doesn't matter, like, if it's casual or not. I believe that it's chemical. Like, you can't ignore that there is a soul tie. There is something that I think you take on, whoever you sleep with, you take on in ways. So I think it's definitely something that's worth talking about. And specifically in the church, I mean, I grew up a Christian, have been a Christian my whole life. That is, it's for me, it's relational. Like, my relationship with Jesus is my number one thing in my life. And I've always known what's right and wrong, what the Bible says about sex before marriage, and had the purity ring, like, knew all the things and was gonna do it, you know what I mean? And I think
gonna not do it.
And I think what happened, again, just like that resistance being wore down, and being with someone who did not protect my purity, because I believe that it takes two people. I think it's a lot to have responsibility just on you in the relationship if you aren't in agreement with your partner of what you're going to do, because whatever you decide to do, if you're not in agreement, it causes issues, obviously.
Right, of course.
So I was just in a situation where I was not with someone who protected my purity, and it fell on me, and it's very hard to do by yourself.
So I think it's really impossible.
And there's pressures, and for me, it was like lines that were constantly slightly moved. Like, well, it like became a thing where I just kept compromising, like, well, it's fine, until it blew up, right? So I think it's just such a bigger conversation than, well, God says not to do it. It's like, okay, sure, but like, why?
Right.
Like, what's actually behind this? Why is sex such a gift that God created in a marriage, covenant? Like, why is it? And I think in the past couple of years, I've really been able to identify that. And my sweet parents gave me a purity ring when I was 13. That's great, but I did not understand what that meant. Yeah. Like, I understood what sex was, but as a 13-year-old girl, I didn't understand the temptation. I didn't understand the feeling. I didn't understand how big of a topic it is. And I don't think we talk about it enough in church.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I don't think we talk about it enough just in general, especially with women. I feel like sex responsibility falls a lot on men. And it's like, but we need to have responsibility too, So I just think it's something I wish I understood more and that was talked about more, instead of just, don't do it, it's not good.
Right.
Like, okay, but why?
Yeah.
And when I'm faced in the moment, in the heat of the moment, literally, like, what is going to actually guide me in the best direction?
Yeah.
So that's just, been a whole big journey for me, but something that I've come to a conclusion with now, but it took me a second to get there.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree wholeheartedly that it needs to be talked about more in general and from all angles, because there's a lot of ways that the modern church fails us. That's one of them, is just kind of putting this as like this kind of taboo topic, or we'll just kind of tiptoe around it. We'll read what scripture says, and then like that's just kind of it. And then in the reverse, it's like, if you're somebody, Christian or not, who wants to abstain from sex, or maybe you have like a certain standard that you want to wait until there's a commitment, or month 6, or like whatever it is. I think, I've even experienced, like, if you're around what I'm going to say is like a secular group of people, meaning like not Christian, not religious, there can be like shame put onto you. It's like, why would you do that?
Like that's
you haven't
weird.
had sex in how long? Like, and then it's almost like, well, if I can't talk about it here and I can't talk about it there,
what are you supposed to do?
What am I supposed to do? Like, what's right, what's normal? And then you just, I think especially as a young girl, can easily just get lost, because there's no clear guidance that's really like raw and realistic.
Feels shame either way sometimes. No matter, in which shame is not from God. And I think that's the biggest thing for me that I've had to heal in my heart with my experience, is like, regardless of culture's opinion or anything, like, shame is not from God. So whatever shame or whatever I'm feeling, like, I gotta dive into that and like, what's actually going on, and how can I remove that to find clarity in why did God create sex just to be between, in a marriage covenant? Like, why is that? And really dive into just sex is powerful. Like, physical intimacy is powerful, but when you cross that line, like, you're stepping into like spiritual territory, I believe.
Absolutely.
So I think with really intense things, you have to, with great power comes great responsibility, Spider-Man, but like, it's true. And I think we just have to discuss it more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's even, when you're talking about shame, there's even shame if you, like, you are doing it all the time. If you're a girl that's like proud and you're just having a very sexual life and you're hooking up with whoever, sleeping with your boyfriend, and like, that's what you're doing, somebody's going to shame you for that too.
Yeah. That's why you can't
win.
You just can't think just culture's going to let you down always. You kind of can't. You just got to be like, all right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it is a very deep soul tie. I mean, any sort of intimacy with a person, even verbal intimacy, romantic, any type of intimacy with another human being is like an energetic exchange coming from your soul. And like having sex with somebody, I would argue having sex with somebody or being with them as they die are like the ultimate forms of intimacy. There's nothing more intimate than that.
Yeah.
And I mean, you're truly like seeing into their soul.
Yeah.
So it's extremely powerful. And I think I'm a proponent of at least waiting until you know if this is a relationship that you want to be committed into.
Yeah.
Because I'll get like just the romanticizing, the rose-colored
glasses.
That's the
thing. That's the thing.
I'm like, I will make up a whole fantasy. I will create a whole Broadway show.
You are a full director in your head, directing this scenario. And I do think that's what's dangerous is that can get ahead, like making that define the relationship, like whatever because let's be honest here, like physical intimacy is important. That is a part of a relationship. That's what makes it not just a friend. Like clearly I'm not saying like don't hold hands, like that's where I think culture gets it twisted in the church. Is like, you're supposed to like leave room for Jesus, like okay, yes, but physical intimacy is important. But if that is the only thing that's lighting your relationship on fire, that's when I think it gets dangerous. And that's what, again, regardless of sex or not, the physical intimacy, that's another thing that tied me to that relationship was like, wow, this feels so great. And I've never felt these things before. And so it just fogs your vision so badly. Yeah. But with a healthy person, it wouldn't do that as much. Like there would hopefully be other things that make the relationship good besides just, we have great chemistry. Yeah. And it's just, it inhibits your perspective.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Because that's something that's very fleeting. It's something that could be taken away really quick. I mean, if someone cheats on you, you'll be surprised how quickly you aren't attracted to them anymore. Right. But that soul tie's there, which is why you have to be You have to be careful of who you're tying it to. That's true. Because it stays. Yeah. You gotta work to get it out. Gotta pray it out. Pray it out, sage it out, get some incense, holy water. All of it. Get it out of there. Oof. Yeah. So I want to transition into after that relationship in your single season. Because you mentioned that it was a really transformative time for you. Whew, baby. So what was that time period like? So it was about, until, I'm trying to think, my new relationship, about 2.5 years of no dating. I did have the apps. We can talk about that. Apps are funny. Ugh, right? Like collective, ugh. Yeah. But 2.5 years, no dating, not even really any like interest, no talking to a man. It was, I knew after that relationship ended, well, the reason why I think God was so beautiful and incredible in the situation is, we talked about this before, but blessing the breaking. I felt when that relationship ended, it was the last piece of the past that God was just kindly waiting. He ended it quickly. He was like, all right, we got to go. It's been too long. But once it was let go, I felt like I was able to be like, okay, God, what do you want from me now? Like I'm at home during COVID. I'm heartbroken. I've lost friends in New York. I'm not even in New York. I'm 23
4 years old and I'm living with my parents. What's happening? But it allowed me to have the open hands for just God to really move. That's when the idea about moving to LA came to mind and shifting more to acting. Like God just started moving really quickly after I let go of that relationship. It's like God was kindly like, okay, I'm going to wait for you. Yeah. Okay, thank God, let's move, you know?
Like we got stuff to do.
Yeah, we got stuff to do, sister. Speed it up. So yeah, it was hard. Yeah. Heartbreak, if you've experienced it, I'm so sorry. If you've been cheated on, it is a lot. But for me, I knew that if I jump into a new relationship, if I tried to cover up the pain with someone else, that I would either be victim to falling into similar patterns, that I would hurt someone else, because hurt people hurt people. Yeah. And I just knew I needed to be on Shelby Island for a sec.
Oh, I like that.
Like Shelby needed some reflection.
What a nice time to be doing that too, like around COVID.
Yeah. And this was towards the end of COVID, unfortunately. Not unfortunately, but like, yeah. So, but yeah, moved to LA, and then really just 2 years of, I read a lot of books. You know, there's a great book called Forgiving What You Can't Forget by Lisa TerKeurst.
I love her.
She's incredible.
She's so good.
A lot of prayer, a lot of time on my knees, a lot of dissecting what went wrong, because it could be very easy. I think it's easy when you are heartbroken to point fingers and to just be like, look what they did. But I think it's important to also look in the mirror and be like, it takes two in a relationship. Why did I fall into this pattern? I have incredible examples of like godly, amazing relationships. I just had to like reroute, like go back in hindsight and be like, what got me here? How can I make sure I don't get here again? So it was an incredible formative time, but lonely, of course. Again, dealing with what if I never find someone? What if? A lot of what ifs. Yeah. Big what if girls sometimes, which we're trying to denounce, we're trying to bind. But, you know, lonely seasons, missing the feeling of what that person gave me. Not the person, not missing the person, but missing the intimacy, having someone to talk to. Right. You know, that was 5 years of having someone, and then just 2.5 years of Shelby Island. Yeah. But so it was hard. I'm not saying like, oh, it was great. I just like took wellness retreats and it was so like, it was ugly a lot of the time. Yeah. But important, I think.
What did you do during that time? So like, cause I know a lot of people struggle with being single. I mean, there's a lot of people who just like can't be alone. Yeah. Whew. I'm not one of those people. I mean, yes and no, like I'm always dating and stuff for the most part, but like, I'm very comfortable. Like, we're in Natalie Island right now. Like,
I love this. Natalie Island's super cute. Love it here.
I'm very comfortable with my independence. Mm-hmm. But there are some people who really, that's very painful for them. Yeah. So kind of like practically, what did you do during that time to cope with the loneliness, to fill your time? Like, if you were feeling down because you didn't have someone to talk to, or like around the holidays, and how did you kind of get yourself out of that?
I think from what I practically did, got really good at taking myself out on dates. I know that sounds silly, but hopefully this practical stuff will be helpful. But love to take myself out to a brunch moment, or to go get a matcha, or I would go on hikes and really without my headphones and would just talk to God, or just appreciate nature. I would read a good book. I would take myself to the movies. Like, I think I'm such a strong believer, if you can't enjoy your own company and be independent, I don't think you can be in a super healthy relationship. I think it's vital that you know how to be by yourself and with your thoughts, and that's scary, and it takes practice. And I think that's what people get scared of, is like the moment where you are alone and with your thoughts, people get anxiety, like, oh no, I'm by myself, like but I think you have to just allow yourself to be like, okay, I'm going to take it slow. Yeah. I am by myself. Oh, I'm feeling a little loneliness. What can I do? It's a beautiful day. You know, I'm going to go for a walk. Yeah. I'm going to go to my favorite coffee shop and get the best vanilla latte I've ever had. You know what I mean? Like, I think little love gifts like that for yourself, I think it just fills your tank and just gets you to a place where you can be comfortable But again, it's not like it's without loneliness, but I think it's just a part of the season. And enjoy being single. Being single is kind of fire. Like you don't have to worry about anyone else.
Right.
You don't have responsibility. Like you can do whatever you want. You can go on that date. You can, go to that friend's house. Like there's so much freedom. And I think it's easy. Like singleness has a bad rap. Like, oh, you're single and alone. It's like, no, I'm single and thriving.
Yeah.
Like life is beautiful and sweet.
Yeah.
So it was rebranding what I believed singleness to be. So that's practically how I got through it. And I didn't feel like I got through it. I felt like eventually after the healing, because it took time. It took time. But once I was able to forgive that person, forgive myself, which was the hardest thing. Not ironically, I think that's pretty normal. But I just was able to be like, okay, if I am single for however long God calls me to be single, I'm going to try to bear good fruit from it. And that was just my mission after the healing took place.
Yeah, healing takes time.
A lot of time.
I mean, if you're really, truly healing, you're in the trenches for a while. I mean, healing from anything, physically or emotionally.
Trenches is a great word because it feels like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're definitely in the pit. But God is there with you as long as you're pursuing Him.
Yeah.
What you were really doing was romanticizing your own self.
Oh, it's so fun to do.
I mean, I've definitely been there before. There was one relationship that I didn't heal from. It was just so painful and so drug out, and I had these really high hopes that just got totally crushed. There was a lot of ties that I had to this person, and I didn't heal from it right away. I just I was so
Band-Aid.
Yeah, I was so disappointed with the outcome that I just couldn't even look at it.
Yeah.
Oof. And there was I had a phase where I was just like going, just outside of my own body, like just not even being myself because I wasn't dealing with what was in there. And then after that, when I started that healing process, I did the same thing as you. I was like, I'm going to romanticize my own life because the things that I'm missing, most of those things I can provide to myself. So I was literally like, I miss getting dressed up and going out on fun dates or going out in Houston and doing different things. So I just started doing that. I would literally literally dress up, heels, full face, everything. Take a book or a magazine and go somewhere. And there was a couple times there was one day that I had on just a very cute kind of streetwear outfit. I took a copy of Vogue to a coffee shop, sat in red, did some work, brought my iPad, just sitting there like I thought I was Carrie Bradshaw, just working away.
Precisely.
Yeah, and then went next door to have sushi, sat at the bar, always sit at the bar. You never know.
Pro tip?
Yeah, you never know who you're going to meet, and if you feel like chatting, the bartender will always chat.
Yeah.
Or whoever's next to you.
Great advice.
And then the bartender came up to me, he's like, are you like some kind of like fashion designer? And I was like...
You're like, yes.
I can be. Maybe so, yeah. No, I was
love
just like,
it.
oh no, I'm just eating sushi.
You're like, I'm just living my life. But that's so good and so true. Like, light the candle, take a bath. Like, get some Epsom salt. Like, give yourself, everything, shower, cozy night. Like, there's so many things you can do. And it sounds silly, but it's not.
It's not silly.
It is life-giving.
It is.
Oh, it's so good.
What I really think that you're doing with that is rewiring your brain. Because it's the same, if you've ever done like therapy and stuff, you have to reroute thoughts. So when you start to have, I'm lonely, nobody wants to be with me,
something's wrong with me. Yep.
Yeah, you can reroute that with just thoughts. You can, speak truth over that.
Yeah.
But you can also get up and go do something.
Put an action to it. Yeah. That's so good.
That changes those feelings, and then all of a sudden you're getting, a dopamine hit from your latte.
Amen. Perfect. That's exactly what we want. And I think when you're in that mindset and heart posture, I think it allows you to actually be open, and it's attracting the right things.
Yes.
Whether that's friends, opportunities, relationships. Like, I think if that's your heart posture, I feel like it's that open hand thing with God. It's like when you're trying to control your own life and like trying to maneuver and make things work, but when you're actually like, I'm going to surrender to this single season and God, however long you want me to be single, could be years. I hope not, but it may be. But help me to be content in all things, because you know those people who are not content and they're not fun to be around. People who are miserable and who like are just unhappy. You don't want to be around those people. So how can you, as a single woman, desiring a relationship but being so negative and bitter, that's not bearing any kind of fruit that will attract or will cultivate a good relationship when it comes.
Right.
So I think it's, like you said, rerouting those thoughts and just being like, yeah, I'm gonna take a Vogue to sushi. That's fierce. Yes. I love that for you.
Thank you. I still do it from time to time.
As you should. And I also will start to do that from time to time.
Yes.
Still good.
Yeah. If you notice around my house, there's just like Vogue and Architectural Digest laying
around
everywhere. I'm a
big AD girl.
Because when I'm like, I can't look at my phone anymore, but I can't sit here and watch TV. Like, I'm just like,
give me
take the magazine
paper
and go somewhere.
I love AD, by the way.
Yes.
Big AD girl.
Love. I think it's actually the same company or same
that makes
editor,
sense.
Whatever. But I want to ask you about, so this concept of living with your palms open.
Yeah.
Many years ago, I had to like really fight with that. When I learned that I was living for 20 plus years like this, the idea of it was just
like crying over
yes. It was like, do they even straighten anymore? Like, it was so painful, so challenging to do that.
Yeah.
When you were in that single season, you made that transition to just like surrendering. What did you learn? What did you learn about yourself? What did God tell you?
Yeah. So many things. That posture of surrender is everything, and it's difficult. But yeah, I really, kind of what we just talked about, enjoyed being with myself, being okay with who Shelby is. I felt I was able to identify more clearly who I desire and like what I desire in a partner and what I want in a relationship. I was able to let go of fear and shame in a lot of ways, the shame from that last relationship and decisions. I felt God really redeemed that in a beautiful way when I gave it to him, instead of me trying to keep the shame or the unforgiveness, when I was actually able to be like, okay, I surrender this. And again, that was a process. It wasn't like that happened overnight. And then I think the biggest thing, getting good community and also having the space to find good community. I now have such incredible friends and a great church community that I've been able to be involved in. And again, that came from like, I had the space for it. I wasn't consumed with my own control or trying to figure out things. Like, I was able just to allow God to use whatever he was going to use. And funny enough, a couple months before the current relationship I'm in, I was really dealing with loneliness. I was like trying to do the apps. Never.
How was that?
Just listen. I hear great success stories from people, and I'm so happy for them. But I despise it personally because I feel so judgmental. I'm like looking at someone's photo and swiping. I'm like, what if they're great? And I feel like a horrible person. I just didn't vibe with it. Tried, but not really. I could have tried harder, but it's fine.
See, I'm like, I don't mind being judgmental. That wasn't what bothered me.
Although
that's not a good thing. I can
like,
judge a little bit.
Yeah,
but for me, it was like what was available on the apps was at least here.
Tough.
In Houston, it's just not good pickings.
Slim pickings. And also, you are meeting someone that you don't know at all. And I think something about that is scary. I think for women, like from a safety standpoint, you have to be careful. Like, I've heard horror stories in that way too.
For sure.
But it just didn't work for me. But I think I was trying at one point a couple months ago, and I just got to a point. It was probably my most surrendered moment, and I was on my knees. I was like, "What's up, God?" I said, "Listen, I'm tired of wondering who this person's going to be. I'm tired of comparing, looking at Carley and Zach and my parents and just being like, what if I never find someone? Like, you know what? I'm going to let it go. If I am called to be single forever, great. As long as I'm pursuing your will, as long as I'm doing what you've called me to do, just help me release that." And then 2 weeks later is when I met the person I'm currently, you know what I'm saying? So it's not that it's like, all right, God, I'm going to surrender so you can give me my husband. Right. I think that's not the way, but I think getting to that genuine point of like, all right, God, I'm going to be content in whatever you have me in. I feel like God almost like waits for us to get to that point, and it's like, perfect. Now you have the strength and the posture to receive what I'm going to bless you with. Wow. But it's only when we actually are like, here you go, take it.
That's scary.
It's a leap of faith, literally.
Oh yeah. And how do you know that you've really surrendered?
Well, great. I think it's a daily thing. I don't think it's a one and done. There's no way. I think it's a constant reminder, like, okay, Lord, I surrender this to you, or I surrender this. Oh, I'm thinking that again. Oh, Lord, I surrender it. Let me not get into that headspace again. I think it's a daily thing. And it may be years of that surrender posture that you need. Like, I don't think there's a formula to it, or when you know you've actually surrendered, but I think it's when you really feel contentment, is that the right word? Contentment. Yes.
Contentment. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
When you feel content in your life, things are good. Do I deal with loneliness? Do I want this person? Of course, God, you know the desires of my heart, but this is where you've called me right now, and I'm going to cultivate good things with what you've given me, because it's already more than I deserve. Mm-hmm. And then, whatever you bring, great. I'll be ready for it. Help me be ready for it.
Yeah, that's huge too. It's huge. Like preparing for what you want.
Because blessing has weight. Right. I think people talk about there's burdens, and like obviously when you're dealing with things that's so heavy. But I think also like blessings weigh. But blessings have a weight, and if you don't have the strength or the character, I don't want to mess up the blessing. And that was also my prayer. Like, God, if you give me if God gave me my future husband right after that breakup, I would have fumbled that bag so fast. I would have messed it up.
Right.
So like God is so sweet in his timing to be like, Shelby needs time. Yeah. Like, let's let her go on her island. Mm-hmm. And then whenever she's able, I just really believe that that's how it works, because I've seen it in my own life, in a lot of others as well.
Well, yeah. And like the man that you're desiring, that is like your dad,
right,
is not going to see Shelby in shambles and in pieces and far from God and dealing with shame and kind of has that just yucky, miserable energy. He's not going to have any interest in that.
Exactly.
Like, the man of your dreams he might be like, she has potential, or she's beautiful, or I love this about her, but he might go, she needs to work on herself.
100%.
And so then
I want to be ready.
That ship sails.
Sails, and I'm like, nah, let me be ready. Let me read a book on marriage. let me read a book on how to be a good wife, or whatever it is, like, because I want to make sure I'm cultivating those things first. So if God ever gives it to me, I'm able to handle it.
Let's talk about that too. Like, how do we, as women, or just as people, we have men who watch the show too, but how do we cultivate that? Like, how do we cultivate being excellent, being what God wants us to be?
I think it goes back to the fruit of the Spirit, and love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Like, I think all those things is, I think a lot of prayer. I think a lot of really being careful who you're surrounded by in your friends. Good, yeah. That is one of the biggest things I've learned in 2024. In college, I had great friends, but I wasn't really around any life-giving people who were maybe ahead of me in my journey. It was a lot of people in the same boat, and we were all kind of like all lost. So I think having wise counsel, whether that's your family or not, because some people don't have the luxury of that. Right. I am really blessed to have amazing parents who are very open to giving me advice, and we have a very open relationship where I'm able to bring difficult things to them. But it's also important to have maybe someone 3 years older than you who is married, and has good advice, or, being around people who are also pursuing Jesus. And that's been the biggest shift for me. I found a great church in LA that just the community is incredible. And so I think that cultivates those things, because it's people pursuing excellence at the same time. And so you're able to be like, okay, we're in this together. Like it's almost like a team instead of you just trying to be good on your own. I also think a lot of grace for messing up and for not feeling excellent all the time. Recognizing that.
I'm bad at that.
Oof, me too, girl.
So bad.
Me too.
Yeah.
It's hard, but recognizing that even if I don't have enough grace, that God always, his grace is sufficient. So when I am so hard on myself or when I'm struggling, knowing that he has enough grace for me, even in those bad moments. But yeah, I just think that's the way to cultivate that fruit. And I think it's work. I think it's daily, again, checking in on your heart posture and also just who you're surrounded by, I think is huge.
Yeah, that's absolutely huge. And with the right people, you start to gain this like energetic momentum.
I was just about to say.
Around these, people who are all moving towards the same like frequency. You're all moving towards, like, if you want to call it excellence or being in line with
whatever it is,
God, being on your path. Being around the wrong people will suck it out of you so fast.
And then you'll look up and be like, wait, this is not where I wanted to be.
Right.
This is kind of an analogy, but there's a great matcha place on it's in Melrose Place in LA, and it's a very bougie area. We're talking like designer shops everywhere. It's not like Beverly Hills bougie, but it's just like the people in this area have purpose and are just in their bag. And I love getting a matcha at this place because every time I go in, I see people just like pursuing their thing. Again, that has nothing to do with God or anything, but it kind of does in the sense of like, okay, if I go to the 7-Eleven to pick up a Celsius, I don't drink Celsius, but my sister does. She's crazy about it. But like, if I do that, great. But if I go into a shop or go into a coffee, it's just, it kind of like alters my vibe. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go home and do something productive. You know what I mean? Like, again, silly example, but it is true. And I think it's a similar representation of your community and just your environment that you put yourself in. Because it is your choice a lot of the time. Like you choose, maybe not at work. Sometimes we can't choose who we are around. But as far as what you're bringing into your life, it is your choice.
Absolutely. And what you said earlier about like people who are life-giving and even activities that are life-giving. I kind of made a huge shift in my life several years ago. That was part of the subscription to Vogue and AD. Was like, I need to like sort of gather things, that activities, hobbies that are life-giving. Instead of just kind of resorting to whatever's available. Scrolling, watching TV, just kind of having the same like mundane routine. When in Houston, especially, going out and drinking and eating. That's just like all there is to do. Well, that's not all there is to do. There's so much to do here, but that's like
that feels like the easy thing.
That's the easy. That's what most people, most young people.
Let's go to the bar, and it's like, okay,
yeah.
How much of a good environment is that going to create? Are these the people? Are these the environments I want to be in? Occasionally, at work,
of course,
but like all the time, probably not.
Probably not. What are you really gleaming from that? Gleaming.
Great word. Come on, vocab. Fire. Love it.
On that note, you should also read a lot of books.
Reading is a big book girl.
Of reading.
Me too. Love a
knowledge, especially nowadays, because it's not even just reading books, but like reading material like online that's not social media. I mean, you can easily find articles or studies or documentaries, even watching documentaries, blogs, things that are just inspiring, that are going to teach you something.
Like find your podcast work. Find your podcast, find your YouTube girly who you love watching. Like I think all that stuff is so important and really matters. Yes.
Okay, I love it. Okay, so we have transitioned through you being single.
This full journey on the roller coaster.
Now you're at the top of the mountain. You've climbed it. You've made it. What, at this point, have you decided you're looking for in a husband? And I guess breaking it down just a little bit more detailed, because we know you're looking for someone who's a man of God, someone who's respectful. What, I guess, I hate the checklist thing, but what sort of is your checklist?
I think like, yes, like, the checklist, but I think it's important. This will kind of going back to important to read. I also think journaling is really cool. Yes. I think when you're able to write down, maybe not all the times, I think sometimes we put pressure on it to, I got to journal in the new year. It's like, don't put pressure on it. But I think it's really cool to write those things down. I have, in my single season, I have a lot of letters to myself and like my future, not necessarily to my future husband, which I think is a cool thing to do. But I wrote down, I found this recently, things that, it was like me talking to God. It was like a prayer journal thing. And the things I said were a man who loves Jesus more than he loves me, a leader, someone who's also a servant, someone who's funny, really funny, love a funny man, someone who's a gentleman, love, someone who has emotional intelligence, it's really big, huge. Emotional sensitivity, who loves art and will go with me to the movies and go see that play, but also who is a man. I think that's a big thing nowadays. I think it's really important for me. I desire a man who really is a man and is strong, is a leader. That doesn't mean that it's toxic masculinity, but I just want someone who will have that, like will open the door, will be a leader, will stand up for what's right, who will be strong but also sensitive, like just a real man. So that really is my checklist. But there's it's specific in ways with like loves art, but like is like sports, but like, well, you know what I mean? Like it's really specific, but I don't think that's bad. Because, and I think it's important to write it down, because then you can look back on it and be like, oh yeah, like these are the things these are my high standards that I asked. Like also like dresses well. Like I put that, like is a man who dresses well, like has good style. Yeah. Like, why not? Let me just add that to the list. Like, I wrote these things down. And I was like, all right, God, these are my standards. And it doesn't mean if I find a man who doesn't dress well, like, if that's the man for me, great. But this was, like, my dream list. We can fix that.
That's one we condone.
We can fix that. If they don't have a good skincare routine, we can fix that.
Oh, yeah, easy.
Can't fix their soul. That's the Lord's work, not mine. Yes. Not mine, Shelby. I have to tell myself.
Just a couple trips to Zara, easy. Done.
Yeah, easy. But yeah, that's kind of become my checklist. Wants to be a dad, wants to have a family. Yeah, I think those are all the things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's an episode in season 1 with a guy named Kevin Pascoe, who he's sort of like a masculinity life coach, really big on TikTok. Awesome guy. He's young, around our age somewhere. And through his own journey with like discovering what it really means to be like a masculine man, not toxic masculinity, but healthy masculinity. He sort of came into this like coaching sphere, and
cool.
He told this story that is just like one of the coolest stories ever. And he wrote down something like 30 qualities, things that he desired in his future partner. And was really like, not just like, oh yeah, well I hope he has blue eyes and that, but like really things that you want to like manifest, or like, you want to attract these qualities into your life, and really believing that you deserve that. Right. And he got into a relationship where he said she was like almost the full list, like maybe let's say 28 out of 30 or something like that. And the relationship like didn't work out. And this was after him having 2 or 3 serious relationships in his life that didn't work out. And after that one didn't work out, he was like, you know what, I'm going to add more to the list. And so then it was up to like 40 or 50 or something like that. And his next girlfriend, which is who he's with now, who seems totally amazing, he went back to the list after they had been dating for some time, and he was like in awe. And he was like, babe, you have to look at this. It's like, you check off every single one of these qualities on this list. And she was like, wait a minute, you made a list? I made a list. And he like checked off everything on her list. Like, so incredible. And it just goes to show that like that's real, like what you really truly believe, what you really think about and sit on and pray on, like those things, whether good or bad, are going to come into your life.
So true. Oh, so true. And the power of, you don't have to think your standards are too high. And that was something for me that I dealt with getting into my first relationship, was like, well, is he really going to love Jesus more than me? Is he really going to want to wait till marriage too? Like, just those doubts of like, okay, my standards are a little high. Maybe I'll just lower my standards. This works. And I think keep your standards high, but your expectations low, because that's not fair to have expectations of someone. You have to be careful with that, but your standards can stay high. And that's my prayer for women and men now, is like, write the list, like be specific. Of course, not like, I'm looking for a man in finance, blue eyes, 6 foot, like physical stuff, sure, but like heart stuff, things that actually, like you said, matter. I think don't be afraid to have high standards, because it's possible.
It's possible. And then be that. That was Kevin's advice, was he said, make 100%. A list. Make a list of everything that you want, and then be that.
Because if you're not, then this is what goes about why the single season is important. Because if you're not cultivating that in yourself, how are you going to expect that from someone else?
Right.
100%. That's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's there's a lot of problems going on in the single culture right now.
Yeah.
But I think that's, from what I've seen, a huge one is people, men and women, not working on themselves, like not preparing, not trying to be like, I want my husband to be so impressed with me and like so amazed and just obsessed. I want him to literally be obsessed with me. And especially because like, hey, there's competition. Like, hey, I want to win.
But you're a prize to be won, though. Yeah. And like I have some awareness that like, I'm competing in a sense with other single women. I know God has a plan for me, but like, He's not going to drop them off at my doorstep. No, that would be weird.
I don't think.
You never know. It could be an Amazon delivery guy or something. I'm kidding.
Could be a stalker.
Could be. Well, let's not do that. But you're so right. You're so right.
Yeah, being excellent, working towards that is probably one of the only ways out of this mess that we're all in.
Yeah. Mess. Capital M. Agreed.
So tell us now a little bit about your current boyfriend. So how did this happen?
Yeah. So I'm serious when I literally was like, all right, God, if you want me to be single for forever, whatever, like, it's fine. Just help me be content. Yeah. My sister and her husband knew him from church. So they already knew him. And I'm also in an actors group that he just got involved in. He's super talented actor, but also does a lot of creative behind the camera, cinematography, directing. He's super talented. So the acting group is also kind of through church a little bit. Like the two ladies who started it go to that church, but it's not exclusively church people.
That's the most LA thing I've ever heard.
Isn't it?
An acting group at church.
It's kind of fire. But like not like from church, but like you don't have to be at church to be in it. Anyways. But yeah, Carley and Zach already knew him, and the first meeting he went to of our actors group, I remember like seeing him and just like kind of interested, and we like talked to church the next week, and we're like, oh, you're that guy that my sister oh, you're the person, whatever.
Were they already trying to like hook you guys up?
This is the thing. This is the thing we're still not sure of. Sweet Carley and Zach, especially Zach, he's really taken on the brother role incredibly well. Has just been like, I can't wait for your person. This is going to be so fun. We're going to go on double dates, and has been super excited about it. So I remember after the Sunday we met at church, like, because we saw each other at the actors group, but I never talked to him. And then the next Sunday we're like, oh, that was you. Like, oh, I'm Shelby. Okay. And the next day, Zach had tickets to a Dodgers game, had like an extra ticket, and I was like, oh, well, that guy, like, we should invite him. And Zach was like, yeah, we should. So it was like kind of a double date setup slightly, but I was like trying to act like it wasn't a double date. Anyways, it was kind of silly. But after that night, that was literally the next day, kind of we were talking a little bit. Next Sunday, he got my number. And then very quickly, this man asked me on a date right away, which I was like, wow. He immediately asked me on a date. We're not in like a talking phase. He's like, hey, let's grab coffee and before rehearsal. And I was like, wow. And he called it a date. I was like, who is this man? Wow. Because I feel like that's rare because everyone's just kind of like DMing and talking for forever. But yeah, we went on one date and I was like, wow. And then went on another one
and
like a week later.
The date video.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm clipping that in.
Please
just
do.
So you know.
Am I too oily? Is it gonna dry? A date is just what y'all been doing already, but in person. You're just talking. You're just like, hey. I would keep your hair in front like this a little bit. You look so gorgeous. Hi, my name is Shelby. 5'6", non-union, and I'm based out of Los Angeles, California. That's all you need to know. How am I gonna get in the car? What do you mean? How are you gonna get in the car? You're just gonna get in the car. But is he gonna be on the car? Okay. Yeah. What do you mean? Is he gonna be where? Well, like, is he gonna pull to the side? I don't want him to get honked at. What? I don't know. It's the first thought I have. And then I know I'm gonna say, I did white strips. They look good. Wow. Okay. Okay. I think it's fine. What do you mean? What's the worst thing that could happen? Well, I die. Well, yeah, but that's the worst case scenario every day. Yeah. That was invasive. Stop. I still feel oily. Right? Help. Okay. I'm off. Shelby's first date in 4 years. It's gonna be fine. I feel out of my body. But am I about to go? What if I faint? Okay, I gotta go. Come here. Lord, let her calm her anxiety. No, do you feel my heart? I do. You ready? Okay, he's waiting. You can wait. That's right. It's gonna be fine. I'm just gonna have fun. We're just having fun. I can talk. Is this happening? Okay, hold on. I feel like I'm gonna cry. What does that mean? Okay, I got it. Wait. Okay. Hey. Whoa. I feel crazy. Gotta go. God bless. I got a date. Sorry, I got a date. I gotta go. Okay. You're in your body. Hold on. You're in your body. Hey, will you text me in about 10 minutes and tell me, like, give me a thumbs up or thumbs down on vibes?
Yes, love you.
Okay, love you. Bless it.
Oh, yes.
I hope it's related. I think it's relatable. I remember
it
when
is the cutest, funniest, most relatable thing ever.
when I tell you, I promise none of it was acting. Like
Oh,
that
no,
was
you can tell.
It was real. 100%. Nothing was like that was all real. Carly was like, you're in rare form. Put up the tripod and was like, I have to film you. But yeah, that was the first date. We went on another date a week later, and then 2 days later, we had a conversation, and he was like, I don't want to pursue anyone else, and I feel life is short, and like, if you're feeling the same, like, why don't we just like give this a shot? And I was like, wow. Agreed. So it was very quick. We went literally on 2 dates, and then just have kind of, pretty crazy.
What was the second date? What did y'all do?
We made dinner and watched a movie. It was like we went to the grocery store together. It was like a super wholesome, like cute, kind of not exciting. Like it was just normal things. Like made dinner and watched a movie. And yeah, back to the checklist thing. He checks every single thing that I've ever written down or thought. And he's now created boxes I didn't even know I wanted checked. So it's just been, again, like weight and blessing. I'm like, whoa, I want to make sure I'm handling this the best way. But it's been, pretty amazing and just specific of God to be like, wow, look, you waited well, and just, his timing for sure. So
did that not, like, maybe because you already knew him, but I'm just thinking about, like, did you not feel weird, like, hanging out at, I guess it was your place or his place on the second date?
No, I think because, we kind of like already knew him. I think that's what, some people in the date video were really upset that he picked me up. People were like, you should never tell him your address on the first date. I'm like, he was already friends with Carly and Zach for like 3-4 months. So we already knew him. So no, it wasn't weird. I know you shouldn't do that on your first date. Don't give them your address and like have them pick you up. But it was slightly, I guess, accelerated just because, he was already vetted.
Yeah, and not that that's a bad thing. I think I sometimes will I would totally overthink that.
Yeah.
Like if a guy was asking me over to his place, like cook and watch a movie.
Oh yeah.
Like I'd be like, so Netflix
So we're
and chill is what
so
you're
we're not,
asking
yeah,
me?
exactly.
Like, yeah.
You got to be careful. You got to vet that situation. But this man is just like as far as protecting my purity, that was such a big thing for me. That has been the biggest thing I've feared since my first relationship is like, I can't do this alone. And I do want to wait till marriage. I really just believe in my heart and my own conviction. Again, not trying to like put it on other people, but like my own conviction is I do want to wait, but I'm so scared that I'm not going to find someone who wants to do that as well. Even in the church, like not all Christians, but like do that.
Oh yeah. Church is a scary place to find guys. To be honest.
Sometimes, sometimes they're weird, right? So it's like, how am I going to find a cool Christian guy who also wants to wait? And it's just been vocal very much from the beginning how important that is to him. So it is a constant conversation, but he protects my purity and is just leading us in that. And so that was the biggest thing for me, that I was like, wait, he dresses well and he's doing this and he loves Jesus more than me. And like, what? This exists. So there's been obviously safety in that. And we have to be smart and, put ourselves in good situations. But yeah, it wasn't weird on the second date. Not that we had that conversation on our second date. We hadn't even kissed yet, like on the second date. You know what I mean? So that wasn't, but you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't go unless you really know them.
Yeah, I think that there's something to be said there because, there's a lot of, depending on if your algorithm looks anything like mine, there's a lot of dating advice out there.
So much dating advice.
Like I've heard, like you should never, like what do they say? Like you shouldn't give wife qualities when you're just a girlfriend. So like never cook a meal for your boyfriend.
I think that's so weird.
And like
what do you mean?
I really thought about that one because I'm like, well, I guess cooking like is a wife quality.
But what do you do?
Like,
what?
But then like, what if I don't want to go out to eat? I don't like to go out to eat that much. So like, do we just not eat or like
just don't eat when you're dating?
But then like, I kind of want to show off that I can cook. So like,
That's silly to me. Yeah.
But things like that I think can make people overthink, or like the whole red flag stuff that's gotten really out of hand.
Yeah.
Like, there would be definitely people that say like, oh, going to this place to watch a movie, red flag.
Oh yeah, people thought him picking me up again was a red flag. They're like, red flag, this isn't good. I'm like, first of all, who are you, stranger?
But I'm like green flag. Like you should definitely kind of how your dad was.
I am such a passenger princess. He doesn't let me touch a door. Yeah. Like he just always drives. Like let him have it. I love that, honestly. That's another checklist. I'm like, well, I didn't know I needed that, but I love being passenger princess all the time. Yeah. So yeah, obviously I think it's case by case. You need to be smart. You need to be safe. But I think when someone's like, don't you, like, I think you have to be careful of that advice.
Right.
Because it's always circumstance. You have to just be smart.
I think there's also some projection in some of that. Like,
something happened.
Misery loves company.
Yeah, something happened in that.
Yeah.
Which is fine. Also, not giving wife qualities while you're dating is such an oxymoron to me. Because I believe the point of dating is to get married, in my view, because I want to get married. So if I'm dating you, we're on, hopefully, if we're in a relationship, we're on the path to that. So why would I not show that? That's weird. That's like backwards for me.
You're right.
It's like a literal oxymoron. But that's okay.
Yeah, because then if you're not presenting those qualities,
how do you
be like, well, she has no wife qualities, so this isn't going to work out.
Not great advice. Personally, I don't believe. But
I have to agree.
To each their own, I guess.
Well, it sounds like a great relationship thus far, so very happy for you.
Thank you.
You're, as far as you keep saying like, blessings have weight as well.
Yeah.
Has there been anything that's come up since this new relationship that has been a challenge for you, or something that you're like, oh whoa, I didn't realize that?
It's not him. It's me. I'm the problem. I think like we talked about Shelby, Natalie Island. We loved that. But there was only so much healing I could do with God without having that new person in that role. So there was things that God was so sweet and I was able to really, clear out things. But now that I have a person in that same role, I've had to be like, ooh, there's things that have come up from the last relationship that I've had to just be really vocal about with him and with God, and just like, okay, ooh, this is and having good company around, like Carly, my sister, and I, we're best friends and soulmates. And so I'll be like, hey, am I overthinking this? Like, is this old Shelby or new Shelby? And she'll be like, old Shelby. I'm like, facts, got it. Like, I'll have to kind of, because I'll start to go back on the old pattern, whether it's like because I was lied to a lot in the old relationship. So learning to trust again and believe a man, like he's a man of his word. Yeah. This man is. Yeah. And the last one wasn't. So I'm like, oh, wait, a man of his word. Okay, yeah, wait, I can believe him. Oh, yeah. I can relax. Like, I've had to just kind of go back and make sure that I'm not bringing the old into the new. So that's been a bit of a struggle sometimes. Probably that, just making sure that the old isn't coming in, and not putting that weight on him, on the new guy. Like, it's not, you know what I mean? Just really making sure that I'm letting this is the present now and not going back and trying to compare or be like, oh no, is this feeling like, it's like, no. Like it's new. He's not my ex. Yeah. Thank God. So making sure I'm not operating from that place, which I feel is very normal, which is why I think taking the time to be single is important. But I would not have been able to feel it until I had someone in that role, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. There's definitely, I'm sure has been and will continue to be more healing that happens as the relationship progresses. Because those things do start to come up, or like something happens and you're like, oh, I didn't realize like that still triggers me.
Yeah.
Or
like fight or flight for me was a big one in fighting, because in the last relationship it would get so volatile. And so I would usually like go away. Like I would usually not fight, or if I would fight, it would be really bad and I would just go away. So when in this new relationship, when we've had any kind of confrontation, I'm like, oh, this is fighting well. Or not even fighting, like this is communication with a healthy person who didn't gaslight me. And I expressed my feelings and they were like, I totally see that and I'm sorry, and how can we be better? Yeah. What? That's the hottest thing I've ever heard in my life. You know, like I just had to remind myself, and he's been so gentle with me about like, it doesn't have to be fight or flight. Like, let's talk. And I'm like, oh, right. Yeah, so it's things, it's just reminding myself, and being with someone who is so emotionally intelligent. It's just like, hot. Who cares about looks? When you're emotionally intelligent, it's a wrap, you know?
Supersedes everything else.
Supersedes everything.
Yeah, you could be short, you could be, who cares?
Who cares? As long as you have emotional intelligence, it's great.
I love that. Okay, so wrapping it up, you've given a lot of great advice, a lot. But what is like your golden token of advice to single women? Single meaning just not married, like whether dating someone or not.
Wow. Let me think. The first thing is wait well. Just wait well. I think waiting seasons, whether it's waiting to get married, waiting to get engaged, waiting to find a man, whatever, waiting for the career. I think waiting is a big part of our life. And I think learning to wait well and wait with patience, hard, waiting with grace, waiting with trust, waiting with faith, I think is the only way to navigate a single season well. Because it's so easy, to just try to speed up, or not being content in the season you're in. Like if you are in a great relationship, you're like, when are we going to get engaged? It's like we always want the next thing. Right. But I think if you learn to just wait well wherever God has you, single, married, whatever it is, because then when you're married, you're waiting for kids. Like there's always a next step, and it's so easy to get ahead of God. And it's like, just going to wait well. I'm going to cultivate the fruit. I'm going to do whatever I need to do to be content and just trust that God has me. And I'm just going to wait well. Yeah. I think I know that's sounds simple. It's not. I think it's
much harder than it sounds.
Much harder than it seems, but I truly believe that's the only way. Because looking back on it now, I've only been in this relationship a short time, though it feels longer because it's been very full and feels like a really healthy relationship, whatever plan the Lord has with it, whether this is my husband or not, it's a good thing right now. But I do think back, I'm like, wow, he's now a priority. I used to have more time. Like I can go back and be like, wait, I got to make sure that I'm delegating my life well now that I'm not, you know what I'm saying? Like there's pros and cons to all of it.
The grass is not always greener.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is why I think you just wait well, whatever season you're in, and be content and just trust that God's got the timing of your life and you don't have to be in control.
Mm-hmm. And having fun too.
And like have some, like let's just have fun. Like you know what I mean? Like it's what we talked about. I just enjoy, life is short and life is beautiful and life is hard, but just have fun, wait well.
Yeah.
And
I love that.
Thank y'all so much for tuning in to today's episode of That's What He Said. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, and I hope you're taking away something valuable that will benefit your dating life. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please give this show a follow, rate, and review. And if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe, like this video, and most importantly, comment below because I want to hear what you said. See you next time. Thank you.